Good morning and welcome to our service on the 1st of June 2020. It's hard to believe that we've just about reached the middle of the year. And for that reason, Craig and I got together with the elders of Harvest in order to figure out how we can leverage up the circumstances we find ourselves in order to maximize our impact as a local church. And that's because it's essential for us to be fulfilling the Great Commission, doing the work that God has called us to do. The kingdom of God must continue to advance irrespective of the circumstances in which we find ourselves. Now, you may remember that at the beginning of the year, we said that we would like to try and get 100 new people to join our fellowship by the end of the year, and preferably people who don't belong to other churches, who are not even attending church. And we think that the best way we can achieve this is by starting up a whole network of little home churches, Harvest home churches. Well, what is a Harvest home church? Well, basically, it is two or more single people or family units meeting together regularly for fellowship. And we would imagine that the following ingredients would be included in these little home church services. We've thought of 4 words, and the first 3 begin with P and the fourth with F. So first of all, P, the preach. Sit down and listen to the online sermon. Second of all, praise and worship. There will always be a list of songs for you to sing along to. Third of all, prayer. Just spend a bit of time finding out what people's needs are, how they're doing, and pray for one another. And then lastly, fellowship. We all are just longing for fellowship after this time of lockdown. So spend some time having tea or coffee together, maybe even have a braai. And as I said before, these meetings don't necessarily need to be on a Sunday. You might find that on a Sunday you'll get together and do stuff with your kids. And then you get together with a group of adults in the evening during the week to do exactly the same thing. So a whole network of little Harvest home churches. Now you might have a couple of questions to ask, and hopefully I will anticipate those questions. First of all, can you invite people along? And of course, we would encourage you to do that. We would encourage you to invite friends of yours, acquaintances, maybe work colleagues, people who are unlikely to come to a big church service, but they will come to a small gathering like this because it's going to be at your own home. And of course, you can tailor the mix of the meeting in order to suit the people who come. So you might find that there's someone who's not going to be comfortable with praise and worship initially and prayer, so you just listen to the sermon. I would say that that's a basic. And then you maybe have a braai afterwards or something like that. Another question is, well, what about my life group? Remember that the reason why we started life groups at Harvest is because there's a special dynamic that happens in a small group that's meeting together. A dynamic that we don't have when we're meeting in a big group of believers. There's a certain intimacy, a certain getting to know each other. There's an opportunity to exercise the gifts of the Spirit, which otherwise you might not be able to exercise in a larger group. So see your life group as the nucleus for starting your little home church. And all you have to do really is to be a host. You're not having to do any fancy teaching. You're just simply hosting a church in your home using the materials that we provide for you. And then the last question that you might have is, well, why is it important to get together with a group of other people? Maybe you just particularly like the idea of having church in bed with your wife and kids, not having to get up and get dressed and all of that kind of thing. And I just fully get it. But the reality is that there is something special that happens when we get together with other believers, and it's worth making the sacrifice for. Remember in Hebrews it says, do not forsake the gathering together of the brethren. And in those days, that's how they did church. They did church in small groups. They didn't have these big groups coming together. So we believe that this is a wonderful opportunity for us as a church to do things differently and to see if we can extend the reach of Harvest to bring in people who wouldn't normally be coming to church. So we would encourage you to do that. Consider starting a little Harvest home church in your church, and in the weeks ahead we'll start sharing some testimonies of how this is going and how people are getting along. Thank you so much. We trust that you will enjoy the sermon shortly and the playlist that we have prepared for you. God bless and have a great time together. Amen.